Component 2 is a look at the fascinating, groundbreaking and thoroughly amazing world of data and how it's used and presented in the world today. By treating it this way, you get to showcase a wonderful component that can really drive your learners' choices both into something interesting, but also a very solid and good potential career path in the current climate. Looking at Learning Aim A, this can be seen as typical data analysis. However, if you get learners to look at how they themselves deal with data and information, it can be really beneficial. One example of this is gossip. You can show them how this information can be represented as fact. There is a great example of fake news stories represented as fact on the Information is Beautiful website. This usually means either something UK-based for political, for example, figures quoted during the Brexit debate, or something surrounding a celebrity from claims about why they decided not to do a certain movie or TV show to such things such as why they're dating a certain person. You can get them to say how they'd evaluate this information. For example, in terms of trust, do they trust one source over another? This could be something like an Instagram post from the personal account of the celebrity being trusted over something that was reported in the newspaper. By making them assess the information and the characteristics in this way, you can show them how this is the same when applied to data sets. A great resource for how this is done is the More or Less Behind the Stats podcast on BBC. Looking at Component 2 and the subject content for Element A6 specifically, and the different types of sectors that use data modelling, you can reference how this is visually displayed. There are plenty of examples on the web of how different industries show data in different ways and how they interpret this in what they do. This can link well with both elements of A2 representing information and element A4 data collection. You can show them how some industries require a much larger sample, how some industries prefer secondary data over primary data, and how some companies such as Ipsos Mori collect data on behalf of these sectors and companies, and how the sector uses this data to respond to it. There are examples such as Volkswagen, and how they responded to the emissions scandal, to the UK Parliament and the issues around the MP expenses. Another good example that the learners will be aware of is Fortnite, and how they responded to a large amount of feedback on loot boxes. Now looking at Learning Aim B, this concentrates on creating dashboards and manipulating data to go on them. This is where using real data sets can be key because it gives learners a real information point that gives them a tangible outcome. Something you can do here is use a service such as Kaggle.com that has lots of free data sets that show such things as FIFA player rankings or Oscars given out, and would allow learners to interrogate this and display it very visually, as well as allowing them to do data manipulation to better display it given. A really good way is using something such as Microsoft Power BI. This is a free tool and really allows you to focus on the elements of Component 2, Learning Aim B and B2 particularly, which show appropriate presentation features as you can switch between different styles of charts at the click of a button. This is a long way away from having to do multiple chart wizards if you're doing something in Excel, and allows the data display and data visualization to be much more interesting for your learners and less intensive in terms of skill set while still meeting Learning Aim B assessment criteria. Specifically B1, P4 and the Level 2 criterion. The nice thing about using a good visualization tool is that it makes Learning Aim C a lot more accessible and rewarding. This is because where a learner has to draw conclusions based on data showing trends, patterns, anomalies and possible errors, it does mean that if the data is visualized well, they can be much clearer about how these have come about and what they mean. If they use a good visualization tool, for example Power BI, then it can also help with Learning Aim C assessment criteria where they have to draw conclusions based upon the presented data, whereby they can show a different chart type and how this can be used to misrepresent data or demonstrate bias by showing an inaccurate conclusion.